It was a night buzzing with anticipation at one of the world's most prestigious opera houses. The grand chandelier shimmered above, casting golden light over velvet seats filled with an expectant audience. The orchestra tuned their instruments, the air thick with excitement and a touch of nervousness. It was a charity gala unlike any other, celebrating classical music, but tonight, something unusual was about to happen. Backstage, Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness himself, leaned casually against the wall, sipping water and chatting with the stage crew. Black leather jacket, iconic round sunglasses, and a mischievous grin was a stark contrast to the elegant gowns and tuxedos surrounding him. He had been invited as a special guest to the event, primarily to interact with the musicians and the audience, not to perform. But fate had other plans. A renowned opera singer, known for her breathtaking performances and notoriously serious demeanor, spotted Ozzy from across the room. She raised an eyebrow, a playful smirk tugging at her lips. Striding over, she said half-jokingly, "Why don't you give it a try on stage? I'd love to see you sing." Ozzy blinked, taken aback. "Sing me." Here he chuckled nervously, brushing off the suggestion. "Come on," she insisted, her tone teasing, but insistent. "It'll be fun. Just step up, try a note, don't be shy." The backstage crew exchanged wary glances. Some were anxious, imagining the chaos that might ensue if Ozzy actually attempted to sing opera. Others couldn't help but grin, knowing that something memorable was about to happen. Ozzy, ever the entertainer, laughed and shrugged. "All right, why not? What's the worst that could happen?" As he was gently nudged toward the stage, the audience remained oblivious to the brewing drama behind the curtains. Little did anyone know, what was meant to be a playful joke would soon turn into one of the most astonishing performances anyone had ever witnessed. The lights above the stage shimmered, the orchestra poised and ready, cameras were rolling, and the crowd leaned forward in expectation for the next act. But no one, not the opera singer, not the crew, not the audience, could have predicted the shock that was about to unfold. Hook line, what Ozzy did next shocked everyone in the room. The backstage area of the Grand Opera Hall was buzzing with activity. Musicians tuned their instruments, stagehands adjusted lighting, and the audience outside murmured with excitement for the evening's performances. Ozzy Osbourne, ever the rock star rebel, leaned casually against the wall, sipping a bottle of water. He was here for a charity performance, but unlike most nights, he wasn't the center of attention, at least not yet. That's when it happened. A famous opera singer, known worldwide for her impeccable voice and strict demeanor, spotted him across the room. With a sly smirk, she walked over, her high heels clicking against the polished floor. "Why don't you try singing on stage?" she asked, teasingly. "Could be fun. Show us what a rock star can do in a tuxedo." Ozzy nearly choked on his water. He laughed, shaking his head. "Me? Sing opera? That'd be a disaster." He thought she was joking, and honestly, he assumed everyone backstage would be in on the laugh. But the opera singer didn't back down. She leaned in closer, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "I insist. Step up. Let's see what happens." Ozzy glanced at the orchestra members, who looked equally nervous. Violins paused, timpani sticks hovered midair, and the conductor raised an eyebrow, clearly unsure what Ozzy could possibly do. A few crew members whispered to each other, "Is he serious? He's a rock legend, not a trained opera singer." Ozzy sighed, but a mischievous grin spread across his face. He loved a challenge, especially when it seemed impossible. "All right," he said, shrugging. "Why not? Let's make this interesting." As he walked toward the stage, the opera singer followed, smirking like she knew something the rest of the room didn't. The lights dimmed slightly as Ozzy approached the microphone. The hum of the tuning instruments surrounded him. For a split second, doubt crept in. He had never sung in this setting, never tried to harmonize with classical music. What if he ruined it? What if the crowd laughed? He shook off the thought. "Just have fun," he muttered under his breath. After all, Ozzy had always thrived in unpredictable situations, from sold-out rock concerts to wild interviews. This was no different. The opera singer leaned over and whispered, "Remember, no one expects perfection. Just give them a show." With that, Ozzy raised the mic, tapped it gently, and nodded at the orchestra. The first few notes escaped his mouth, slightly off-key at first, but there was a raw energy in his voice, something electric that no one had anticipated. The musicians exchanged uncertain glances, trying to adjust to his style, while the opera singer watched intently, a mix of skepticism and curiosity on her face. The crowd outside was still waiting, unaware of the spectacle about to unfold. Cameras backstage began recording, some casually, some knowing that this could be something special. And in that moment, Ozzy realized, this wasn't just a joke anymore. This was an opportunity to surprise the world audience. Engagement prompt. Have you ever seen someone totally out of their comfort zone? Comment below where you're watching this from. London, Los Angeles, Tokyo, or somewhere else in the world. With a deep breath, Ozzy prepared for the first full verse, unaware that what came next would completely shock everyone, including himself. The backstage chatter had died down, replaced by a tense hush. Ozzy Osbourne, known for his wild performances and legendary rock persona, was now standing at the edge of a world-renowned opera stage. Far from the safety of his usual microphones and screaming fans, the orchestra had finished tuning their instruments, and the lights were warm, spotlighting the empty expanse of the stage like an invitation or a trap. He took a slow breath, feeling the polished wooden floor beneath his feet. The opera singer, famous for her precision and strict training, gave him a look that mixed amusement and disbelief. "Just sing," she said, raising a single eyebrow, as if she were daring him to ruin the entire evening. Ozzy chuckled nervously, scratching the back of his head. "Well, all right," he muttered under his breath. He stepped forward, the audience now fully seated, eyes fixed on him. Flashbulbs popped from photographers trying to capture the absurdity of the moment. A rock god in a tuxedo-filled opera hall. He hummed softly at first, almost like testing the waters, trying to find the right key. The sound wobbled. It wasn't the controlled, polished resonance of the opera singers. No, it was raw, rough, and distinctly Ozzy. A few whispers rippled through the audience. Is he serious? Oh no, this is going to be a disaster. The orchestra exchanged nervous glances, unsure if they should follow his lead. The strings were held in midair. The woodwinds paused, waiting for a cue that might never come. Ozzy raised his hands slightly, a signal that he was ready for them to start. With a hesitant nod from the conductor, a soft piano chord floated into the hall. Ozzy's lips parted, and he hit his first note. It was shaky at first, a tiny wobble in pitch that betrayed his lack of formal training. He closed his eyes, letting the sound fill him, almost like he was discovering it for the first time. The audience held their collective breath. Some stifled giggles, expecting the worst. A few shook their heads in disbelief, thinking, this is going to be painful. But something unexpected happened. As the next note came, it didn't clash. Somehow, miraculously, Ozzy's voice found a strange harmony with the orchestra. The opera singer's eyes widened. Did he just... She whispered to her colleague. Her tone carried awe, tinged with confusion. She wasn't the only one noticing. A young man in the audience leaned forward, whispering to his friend that actually sounds good. Ozzy smiled sheepishly, realizing the first wave of panic was fading. He took a deeper breath, moving into the next sequence. He added a tiny flourish, his signature rock rasp, his unmistakable personality, and yet, it didn't feel out of place. Instead, it added a raw emotion that contrasted with the classical precision of the orchestra, creating something entirely new, almost magical. By now, the audience was leaning forward in their seats, some even gripping their armrests in disbelief. No one had expected this. Cameras in the front row zoomed in, recording every second. Knowing this would be shared online before the night was over, Ozzy hit another note, slightly higher, slightly bolder, and it held. The hall was silent except for the sound of his voice blending with violins, cellos, and the soft percussion of timpani. The opera singer, previously skeptical, now had a hand over her mouth. Could this really be happening? For a moment, it seemed as if the world had paused. The rock star and the classical orchestra, two completely different worlds, were somehow perfectly aligned on this stage. Ozzy opened his eyes and glanced at the audience. Faces were a mix of shock, delight, and disbelief. Whispers of unbelievable, and he's really doing it, floated through the room. He took one final note in this opening segment, long, held, and surprisingly steady, before the orchestra picked up the tempo for the next part. The audience erupted into quiet applause, not out of mockery, but genuine appreciation. Even the opera singer couldn't hide her amazement. Ozzy grinned, leaning slightly toward the orchestra, a twinkle in his eye. He had survived the first notes, and more importantly, he had captured everyone's attention, from disaster to astonishment in under a minute. The whispers in the hall turned into murmurs of excitement. This is going to be incredible. And just like that, the impossible pairing of Ozzy Osbourne and a full classical orchestra had moved from joke to jaw-dropping reality. The lights in the Grand Opera Hall dimmed slightly, leaving only a warm spotlight on Ozzy Osbourne as he stood nervously at center stage. His black leather jacket and iconic round glasses looked completely out of place amid the glittering gowns and tuxedos of the orchestra members. A hush fell over the audience, a mixture of curiosity and amusement filling the air. People had expected a joke, maybe a disaster. Ozzy took a deep breath. The first note he hummed was slightly off-key, his rock-infused timbre clashing with the delicate orchestral tuning. A few people in the front row stifled giggles. The famous opera singer, standing near the wings, raised an eyebrow, lips pressed tightly. This is going to be painful, she muttered under her breath, shaking her head. Then something unexpected happened. Ozzy tilted his head, closed his eyes for a brief moment, and let the music flow through him. He started again. This time, the note hit a perfect resonance with the orchestra's lead violins. The sound bounced through the hall, creating a strange but mesmerizing harmony. The audience gasped collectively, as if hearing something magical for the first time. The opera singer froze. Her initial disbelief turned into astonishment. She whispered to her colleague, barely audible over the swelling music, "Is he actually hitting the right notes?" Ozzy's confidence grew with each phrase. He was still clearly an outsider in this world, but the sheer authenticity in his performance, his heart, His energy blended surprisingly well with the disciplined, precise movements of the orchestra. His voice wove through the melodies, a unique mix of rock, grit, and a surprisingly melodious tone. The notes were unconventional, yet they harmonized beautifully. Audience members leaned forward in their seats, eyes wide. Phones were discreetly raised to capture the moment. No one wanted to miss this. Some whispered to their neighbors, "I didn't think he could do it. Wait, that actually sounds amazing. Is this really happening?" Backstage, the famous opera singer's expression had changed completely. Her skeptical frown melted into awe, then into a genuine, impressed smile. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "I didn't expect this. He's talented." Ozzy, sensing the shift in the room, began to experiment slightly with dynamics. He didn't oversing or try to dominate. Instead, he let the orchestra guide him, weaving in small flourishes that matched their crescendos and It was as if he had found a hidden bridge between rock and opera, a place where both could coexist beautifully. A ripple of murmurs went through the crowd, slowly turning into audible applause after the first few measures. People were no longer laughing. They were holding their breath, captivated. Every note Ozzy sang seemed to challenge their expectations and then surpass them. The opera singer, previously convinced this would be a laughable moment, now had tears glistening in her eyes. She muttered to her colleague, He's not just singing, he's telling a story, a real story. And he's good." Even some of the orchestra members, initially hesitant, began to smile and nod along with the unexpected harmony. The energy in the hall shifted dramatically. What was supposed to be a humorous interlude was transforming into a genuine performance, a rare moment of magic born from total unpredictability. As Ozzy reached the final note of the first piece, a note that hovered perfectly between rock's rawness and opera's purity, the hall erupted in stunned applause. The audience was on their feet, cheering whistles and claps echoing off the gilded walls. Some laughed in disbelief, some cried quietly, and all of them were united in one thought. This was something they had never seen before. The opera singer stepped forward, clapping slowly, shaking her head in amazement. She mouthed to a nearby colleague, "I underestimated him completely." Ozzy smiled, slightly out of breath, but grinning widely. He gave a humble nod to the orchestra, then raised his hands in mock surrender, as if to say, "I didn't mean to surprise you, it just happened." And just like that, what everyone thought would be a joke had transformed into one of the most unforgettable performances the opera hall had ever witnessed. The audience realized they weren't just watching Ozzy Osbourne attempt opera, they were witnessing a boundary-breaking moment of pure musical magic. The lights in the opera hall dimmed further as Ozzy Osbourne took center stage. He had started hesitantly, humming a few shaky notes at first, but something shifted in the air. The audience, initially skeptical and half amused, leaned in, sensing that tonight might become something extraordinary. The opera singer, who had playfully challenged him, watched from the wings, arms crossed, eyebrows raised. She had expected a train wreck, a rock star completely out of his element. Instead, something unexpected was happening. Ozzy's voice, raw yet surprisingly melodic, began to find its footing alongside the orchestra. The strings responded to his pitch, the woodwinds echoed his rhythm, and even the percussion seemed to fall in line with his untrained but instinctively musical style. A ripple of murmurs moved through the audience. "Wait, that actually works. He's amazing." Gasps of disbelief followed by laughter of sheer astonishment punctuated the hall. Some people began filming on their phones, realizing they were witnessing a once-in-a-lifetime moment. Others clutched the edges of their seats, unable to tear their eyes away from the scene unfolding before them. Ozzy, fully aware of the growing tension and anticipation, began to lean into the performance. His usual rock theatrics were tamed, replaced by a careful but daring attempt to harmonize with the orchestra. He added subtle flourishes to his voice, stretching notes, experimenting with vibrato, even attempting small runs he had never tried before. To everyone's surprise, it worked. The combination of his raw rock tone with the delicate operatic arrangement created a sound that was unexpected, thrilling, and undeniably captivating. From the wings, the opera singer's disbelief gave way to a growing smile. She whispered to her colleague, her voice almost shaking, "I thought this would be a joke, but he's actually perfect. He's making it work." The orchestra members, initially tense and unsure, started to play more confidently, feeding off Ozzy's energy. Some even exchanged impressed glances, silently acknowledging that this was no ordinary performance. It was a collision of worlds that somehow made perfect sense. The audience, previously on the edge of laughter, now sat riveted. The usual formality of the opera hall gave way to an electric sense of awe. People began clapping lightly, along with the beat, their applause growing steadily as Ozzy hit a particularly impressive high note. Murmurs of astonishment and delight filled the room. "He's incredible. I can't believe this. Ozzy Osbourne, in an opera?" Ozzy noticed the crowd's reaction and, with a cheeky grin, leaned into the microphone. His voice grew stronger, more confident. The crowd leaned in, hanging on each note. The opera singer, now openly applauding from the wings, raised her hand, signaling her approval. Even the harshest critics in the audience, who had come expecting to witness a comedy of errors, found themselves on their feet, clapping and cheering, caught up in the magic of the moment. Phones recorded every second. Every note, every look exchanged between Ozzy and the orchestra. Every gasp and cheer from the audience was captured and destined to go viral. People whispered to their neighbors, unable to contain their excitement. "This is historic. He's changed the game tonight." As the final chords echoed through the hall, a stunned silence fell for a brief moment before erupting into a thunderous ovation. Standing ovation after standing ovation shook the venue. The opera singer, now beaming, approached Ozzy on stage, clapping and laughing. I never thought I'd see anything like this," she said. "You completely surprised us all." Ozzy, slightly out of breath but grinning from ear to ear, waved to the audience. Thank you. I didn't know what I was doing, but apparently, it worked." Laughter and cheers filled the hall. Cameras flashed. The moment was immortalized. A rock legend had bridged genres, silenced skeptics, and shocked the world. The crowd's reaction wasn't just applause. It was awe, excitement, and respect. In that single performance, Ozzy had transformed from a rock star trying something new into a symbol of daring creativity, fearlessness, and unexpected brilliance. The final notes of Ozzy Osbourne's unexpected performance lingered in the Grand Opera Hall. Silence, absolute silence. The audience, initially expecting a train wreck, couldn't believe their ears. Ozzy, the Prince of Darkness, known for his wild rock concerts and unpredictable antics, had just delivered a performance that harmonized flawlessly with a world-class opera orchestra. The famous opera singer who had first challenged him was standing with her arms crossed, her jaw slightly dropped. She whispered under her breath to a colleague, "I didn't think anyone could pull that off, not even him." Ozzy, standing under the golden chandelier, gave a small humble smile and shrugged, as if to say, "I was just having fun." He stepped back slightly, letting the orchestra finish the final crescendo, which somehow had the faintest touch of heavy metal edge without breaking the classical tone. The crowd began to murmur, then erupted into applause, the thunderous clapping echoing throughout the historic hall. Phones lifted, recording every second. The viral moment had already begun. Then, the opera singer approached him, her eyes wide with genuine admiration. The audience quieted once again. Sensing this was the moment of acknowledgement, "I have to confess," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "I thought this would be a joke. I never imagined anyone could blend rock and opera this seamlessly. You just blew everyone away." Ozzy laughed softly, a mix of relief and joy. "I didn't expect it either," he said. "But hey, life's more fun when you try new things, right?" The opera singer's stern expression softened. She extended her hand in a gesture of respect. "That was incredible. Truly, you've got a gift I never expected to see in this setting." The audience rose to their feet, applauding even more loudly. Some were cheering, some were whistling, and many were capturing the moment on their phones, knowing that this performance would be shared across social media within minutes. Backstage, reporters and photographers rushed in, cameras flashing. One asked, "Ozzy, how did you prepare for this?" Ozzy chuckled, wiping his brow. "Prepared? I didn't. I just listened, followed the music, and trusted it. Sometimes you just have to jump in and see what happens. That's where the magic is." Meanwhile, the opera singer addressed the audience with newfound excitement. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is proof that boundaries in music are meant to be broken. Tonight, we witness something extraordinary. Two worlds, classical and rock, colliding perfectly in one moment." The crowd erupted again. Social media instantly lit up with hashtags like #OzzyOpera and #RockMeetsClassical, and clips began trending worldwide. Fans from Tokyo to London were commenting, "Ozzy just did the impossible, and this is why he's a legend." Ozzy, standing with his guitar slung casually over his shoulder, waved at the audience, a humble grin on his face. He didn't gloat, he didn't brag, he simply allowed the music, the applause, and the shared excitement to speak for itself as the cameras panned out. One thing was clear, Ozzy had turned what began as a playful joke into an unforgettable musical moment, proving that stepping out of your comfort zone can lead to extraordinary, world-shocking results. As Ozzy Osbourne stepped off the stage, the applause didn't just fade, it thundered. People were on their feet, cheering wildly, phones held high, capturing every moment. What had started as a joke from a serious opera singer had turned into one of the most unforgettable performances anyone in the audience had ever witnessed. Backstage, the opera singer herself shook her head in disbelief. "I honestly thought this would be a disaster," she admitted, smiling. "But he was incredible." Cameras caught her words, and immediately, clips of the interaction were shared across social media platforms. Within hours, videos of Ozzy's unexpected harmony with the orchestra were trending globally. Fans reacted in droves. Comments poured in. "Ozzy just reinvented opera. Who knew? This is the crossover I never knew I needed. Even the opera singer can't believe it. Amazing." News outlets couldn't ignore it either. Headlines appeared. "Rock legend Ozzy Osbourne stuns opera crowd with unbelievable performance from heavy metal to high notes. Ozzy shows unexpected talent." Ozzy, ever the humble showman, chuckled as reporters swarmed him. "I was just having fun," he said. "I didn't expect it to go this well. But hey, you never know what can happen when you step out of your comfort zone." Meanwhile, the opera singer posted a video herself, praising Ozzy. "I misjudged him, and I'm so glad I was wrong. Talent comes in all forms. And today he reminded us all not to underestimate anyone." The viral moment became more than just a funny story, it became an inspiration. Social media users created memes, mashups, and reaction videos, celebrating the unlikely union of rock and opera. Fans from Tokyo to Los Angeles to London shared their excitement, leaving comments about how Ozzy's courage encouraged them to try new things in their own lives. The story even sparked interviews and collaborations. Young musicians and aspiring singers were motivated to experiment outside their genres, citing Ozzy's performance as proof that taking risks could lead to incredible outcomes. For Ozzy, the experience was memorable but meaningful. It wasn't just about surprising the crowd, it was about breaking boundaries, embracing humor, and showing that trying something completely new could lead to magic. In the end, the world watched, shared, and cheered for a rock legend who dared to step into unfamiliar territory, and conquered it with style, courage, and a smile. If you believe stepping out of your comfort zone can lead to amazing surprises, type OLD in the comments and subscribe for more jaw-dropping stories like this one.